Welcome back to another edition of Tuesday's Thought. So hard to believe that we are already in the month of February, but here we are, and we are thankful and grateful to be alive. Tonight's topic is going to be about friendship. We're going to be talking about 4 keys to healthy friendships. Before we jump in, take a minute and go ahead and share, maybe even tag a friend, and let's get into the discussion. When we think about friendships, normally the types of things that come to our mind include things like loyalty and trust and dependability, affection, friendliness, right? Those are the things that really drop into our mind, the basic things that we would expect in friendships. But tonight I really want to dig a little bit deeper in looking at healthy friendships. And I'm talking about those long-lasting, solid, for a lifetime type relationships. And perhaps some of the things that I'll say, as you'll see, are actually going to be transferable. They're transferable into different types of relationships, partnerships, etc. But we're really just going to be looking at friendship. So the first key is that your friends have common values, or good friends, solid friends should share common values. Now, your core values are those really fundamental things, right? There's the root beliefs that basically guide the way you behave in pretty much all of the areas of your life, right? They underscore how you think, how you view the world, etc., and how you conduct your life. So in healthy friendships, you are going to find common ground about the things that matter the most, right? And this is it's part of the glue that helps keep the friendship stuck together, woven together, and keeps it remaining strong over a period of time. So for example, one of the greatest principles, certainly that I remember, that Jesus taught, and I say I remember it because I feel like it's something that we have been taught even in school. I remember learning it as a child. But it was one of the principles that Jesus taught as it relates to how to treat other people. And we've coined the phrase that it's the golden rule. You may have heard that it's termed as the golden rule. And it simply says that you do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Okay? If I were to translate that, I'd simply say it's treat people the way you like to be treated, right? And that's, as I say, something that I personally have held on to, and it's something that we can translate to any area of our life and of our interactions with others. So in healthy friendships, there's almost an element, like a subconscious element of that coming into play. There's an automatic inclination to want to treat your friends the best way possible, right? Because that's how you want to be treated, and what you want for yourself and what you expect for yourself is what you want for your friend and what you expect for your friend. Now, despite the fact that I'm saying one of the key principles are that you share common beliefs, recognize, of course, that you can obviously share different opinions and you can have different perspectives about certain things. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately your core values that are aligned. Okay, so things pertaining to family, faith, conviction, right, et cetera, the list can go on. Solid friendships essentially see a cohesion, a parallel. You will tend to gravitate towards the people and build relationships with people that share these core values. And as I said, these are the types of relationships that are lasting over time. Now, the Bible poses this question rhetorically in the book of Amos. It says, can two walk together except they be agreed? Right? It's a rhetorical question. And in another translation, it says, can two people walk together without agreeing on the direction? Now, intuitively, the answer is, of course, no, right? So even if you start out together, and I'm just applying this to this concept of sharing core values, even if you start out together, unless you have common agreement on the direction you're going in, you'll inevitably end up parting ways as each of you goes in, your separate directions. You can't be walking together in agreement. You can't be together, walking together if you're not going in the same direction. And so it is as it relates to those core values in solid, deep friendships. If you are not on the same page, if your vision is not aligned, if your values are not aligned, ultimately you'll end up in divergent directions. So that's the first thing. Solid friends will share common values. The second point, the second key to solid friendships is that your friends will push the potential in you, okay? Now, needless to say, we are usually our own worst critics, right? So we are the ones who are most able to sort of highlight our flaws and point out our weaknesses and things that we're not so great at. Usually we'll be the first ones to look at ourselves and kind of pick it apart. But in good friendships, in solid friendships, typically a friend is able to pull out of you, is able to pick out of you, is able to identify the potential that you have, the potential that you yourself may not see, right? Solid friends can see greatness in you that you haven't seen for yourself as yet. And it's in that context of friendship that they can help you propel yourself, right? Get yourself into the next dimension of what it is that you were trying to accomplish. And that, as I say, this can be in any domain of your life, right? There's a saying that says, it's hard to see the picture when you're the frame. In other words, you're on the inside. You can't always necessarily see yourself. In fact, you can't see yourself as an individual unless you have the assistance of a device called a mirror, right? But your friends can often, good solid friends, can often see past sort of the things that you see, the negatives that you see, and they'll look beyond that and help you pull out the potential that lies within. They'll help you identify the strengths that you have. They'll sometimes help you say, you know what, that thing that you may have seen as a drawback, as a negative, as a character flaw, it actually can be built on, and here's how to do it. The beauty about friendship is not only will they help you identify, right, some of those untapped potentials, but they'll help you build on them. They'll help you strengthen them. And part of that building process is not necessarily to be critical from a detrimental perspective, but it is to be constructive. So yes, you might highlight a flaw that you see in yourself or a deficit that you might see in yourself, but a true friend, a solid friend, a good friend is going to be able to take that and build in constructive criticism. And the purpose of constructive criticism is, again, to change, to enhance, to build up. And that is one of the key features of a solid friend. Now, the third point about true friendship, healthy friendship, in fact, that's our topic tonight, is really looking at healthy friendships, is that your friends will support you, but not enable you. Friends should support you and not enable you. So it goes without saying that everyone pretty much needs good, strong cheerleading in their corner, right? Everybody needs a hype man, is one of the saying goes. Folks that will essentially boost you and help provide that positive reinforcement, and that they'll support your vision, any aspirations that you have and that you speak to. They'll help enhance you, and they'll really kind of try to strengthen you and lift you up and build you up in that context. Good friends support you in that they have your back, right? Even if it means that it might leave them exposed at times by having your back. And when I think about that, I speak about it in the context of perhaps you may be embracing an unpopular opinion. And a good friend, again, provided that it's a wholesome opinion, but needless to say, it might be unpopular perhaps within the group or the context, the setting that you're in. And a good friend will stand beside you and hold you down and have your back in that position, even though it might leave them exposed or vulnerable to also being criticized. for standing with you. But that's the type of support that a good friend should demonstrate. Good friends, in terms of support, they want to see you win. That should be the objective of a good friend. So they should have no problem, in essence, in seeing you excel, even if it means that you're excelling in your dreams beyond the dreams that they have for themselves, right? They're not necessarily attaining to some of the things that you are attaining unto. But that aside, doesn't matter. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you win. And as I said, they'll help push you towards that. They're not going to only support you in the good times, right? When you're thriving and when you're achieving and when you're hitting those milestones and meeting those goals and all that. But good friends, those that form healthy relationships with you or healthy friendships with you, they will also support you in the not so good times. They'll be there for you in the lows. They'll see you at your worst. They'll see you when you're not at your 100% and be able to indulge you and lift you up and build you and support you in those low moments, right? When there's nothing to gain, good friends and healthy friends will be there, right? You won't have to worry necessarily about being, there's a saying, when you're out in public or when you're on social media or when you're in a group, you have to, be on. But when you're behind closed doors, sometimes you just need to sort of turn the switch off and just be off and be yourself, let your hair down and all of these things. Good friends can see you in both of those settings. They can be there for you in both of those settings, and they'll help you thrive in both of those settings. Now, the flip side of that, as I said, a good friend will support you, but not enable you. That means they should not put up with your bad habits without checking you, okay? One thing that you should be able to count on from a good friend is that they'll move past any initial hesitation they may have had about, hurting your feelings if they say something, and they will speak up, right? Because they recognize that the purpose of telling you straight is so that you can actually, as I say, see perhaps what you're not seeing in terms of those bad habits. There's no sense in enabling your dysfunctional behavior, your improper behavior, inappropriate behavior, and you're calling yourself a friend and allowing it to continue. Now, there's varying degrees, right? Obviously, it's not so much about what you say, it's about how you say it. So a good friend will know how to say, look, you need to straighten out. You need to check yourself. This isn't right. This isn't appropriate. And let you know in a manner, as I say, which will maintain and preserve that friendship in a constructive way. It's all about how you say what you need to say and not so much the saying it in and of itself, even though that's critical when you're talking about good friendships. They're not going to enable your behavior. They're not going to allow you to continue to perpetuate things that are bringing you back to, the same spot you were in, say, a week ago, and that you continue to cry about. Ultimately, they'll speak up and say something. And sometimes in that context, it may even mean that for a season or for a moment, they may have to walk away, right? Because if you're being told something that's for your benefit, it's meant to build you up, it's meant to help you succeed, but you're not in a space that you may hear it at that moment. Sometimes good friendship means, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna back off. I'm not gonna support you in what it is that you continue to do, which is having a negative impact, not only on yourself, but perhaps on others in your circle. So I'm gonna take a step back. I'm not leaving, I'm not gone, I'm not abandoning you, but I'm gonna take a step back because sometimes that space is essential. It's necessary to give you an opportunity to reflect and say, you know what, hey, maybe what they're saying is something that I need to take heart to. Because again, you'll recognize and you'll be able to identify when it's coming from somebody who you've built and established a strong and solid friendship with. You'll recognize that it's for your benefit. They're not doing it necessarily to tear you down, but they're doing it to build you up. So that leads us into our final point. The final key is that solid friends learn each other's language and know how to communicate. So it goes without saying that good communication is a hallmark for any type of strong relationship. It doesn't matter the type of relationship that it is. Good communication, effective communication in and of itself is key. Like it's a key ingredient. And so it's no different as it relates to friendship. But friendship, I'll say, taking it a little bit further, friendship involves actually learning each other's what I call unspoken language, right? So it's the notion that good friends know when you're speaking, even when you haven't even said a word, right? They can often tell when something's going on. They know that you're kind of not at your 100. Maybe something's weighing on your mind. Something's kind of, it has you stressed perhaps. And sometimes it's just in your demeanor. It's in your aura. It's in perhaps an expression on your face. It's something. But over time, as friendship is built, you begin to learn how to read those, as I call them, those unspoken words. And so with that, once you've identified that, you're able to kind of highlight, what something may not be wrong. A good friend will know what to say, and they'll know, what not to say. They will know when to say something and when really to say nothing at all. And you know what, this is just a time for listening. They'll also know, if it's time to pour into you with words and with encouragement, and when it's time to just jump straight into action, right? Sometimes you'll be in a moment where what you do require is a bit of a pep talk, or you'll need kind of a, hey, get it together. Come on, get your game face on. Let's get this thing done. And other times it's not those words, right? You don't need to sort of be poured into that way. It's actually, you need somebody to take action. And a good friend will know, you know what? This is it. I'm done. I'm coming over. I'm doing what I need to do. And they'll just get the job done. And this is developed, as I say, over time, as you have built and worked, had experiences and been through situations and had issues. You develop the ability to hear that unspoken language, and not only hear the language, but know how to respond to it. Another thing that's still on this point, it relates to this notion of dependability. Friends should be dependable, but not only physically dependable in terms of, providing the things that you may need or being there for you, but there's emotional dependability. And I'm kind of coming up with this phrase in my own mind. And the way I would define that is really, it's the ability to actually interpret and understand and then properly respond to each other's emotional expressions, right? To each other's emotion as they're expressed outwardly. And so in order for a friendship to be strong and really withstand the test of time, there has to be sort of that ability for an emotional dependability, to know that when you need to be there, when you've read the cues, when you understand sort of something that's going on, you recognize that, this silence in the moment that I'm getting from my friend is not disconnection, it's not rejection, it's not any of those things, but it's my friend's moment to recalibrate, or, right, it's that thing that they need because of what they're going through in this time that requires me to kind of just, okay, I'm just going to stand guard, I'm going to stand watch, I'm going to stand by as they process it in that way. And so emotional dependability requires that interpretation and understanding. And it's critical. It's key to supporting and undergirding and really strengthening the friendship, strengthening rather that individual in that time that they are experiencing. For all of the things that I've highlighted, really the thing that kind of ties it all together and what creates a healthy friendship as you identify these things. And of course, there are many other things that could be said. I've simply chosen, just 4. But what makes the key ingredient as far as it being a healthy friendship is the fact that all of these things should be mutual, right? There should be balance. There should be a mutual expectation from each side so that one is sort of not outweighing the other. And so I'm not saying that you can't have friendships, right? Or acquaintanships and so on. But that's really what distinguishes it, is if you can find balance, if you can find mutuality, if you can find reciprocity and see that these things are flowing in both directions. Each friend may bring a different perspective or a different thing to the table. For example, you might have one of the friends who is, humorous, who's overly humorous, and another who is really analytical and who's really able to dig in and, help problem solve. But at the end of the day, these keys, these principles, these factors, they balance one another out. So it's not a situation of, one kind of drawing or pulling all of the life out of the other constantly at each turn. But there will be those moments when it's, I can pour into you and you can pour into me, and so on, right? And so unless there's that reciprocal sort of exchange, you have to be careful, right? You have to be careful, because that is what defines it, essentially characterizes it as being a healthy relationship. You can have all the other types of things, right? How the person makes you feel, right? What the person is able to bring to your life, and all these things. But we got to make sure that in all of it, there is balance. So in closing, as you may have sort of heard all of these 4 things, and you may be kind of going through your mind and, thinking to yourself, well, you know what? I'm not sure if I can identify a person or people in which I can see these types of characteristics, or I see that type of an exchange. It's interesting that, certainly from childhood and as time goes on, as we move into adulthood, we tend to take friendship for granted. We do, busy with life, different priorities, right? Families and things like that. So we kind of tend to maybe take good, strong friendships. And again, I'm talking about those lasting, can count on, ride or die type healthy friendships. And so we can take them for granted. But I'd like to submit to you that friendship is in fact a gift from God. It's a gift that God has given to us as humanity in our ability to interact with one another. And yes, we often talk about, being brothers and sisters in Christ and so on, but underscoring all of that is and should be friendship. And it should be considered a blessing if you find yourself surrounded by, whether it's one or, as I said, multiple friends who can be there for you and support you in all the ways that we've identified. Okay, but you may have, as I said, as we've been going through, you may have kind of reflected and said, I'm not really sure that I can identify that. I have acquaintances, I have associates, right? I have family, I have, people that I consider to be friends. I'm certainly not talking about, social media friends, that kind of a thing, people that, you friend on various social media platforms, but actual real life relationships, right? And so you're saying to yourself, I maybe see that there's a gap in my life as it relates to this type of friendship. And I just want to encourage you, and I will anchor it in this very short scripture, in this very short text. It's taken from Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 24. And it simply says, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly. There is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. And so just looking at the very first clause of that passage, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly. If you find that perhaps there's a deficit in your life in this regard, let me encourage you, start out by showing yourself friendly, right? Demonstrate friendliness. If you want a friend, if you want good, solid friendships, start by being a good, solid friend. Ask the Lord to guide you. Ask the Lord to strategically put people in your life, position people in your life who you can demonstrate and share that type of fellowship with. Because as I said, it truly is a blessing. We've often heard that saying, no man is an island, right? And absolutely 100%, I do believe that God has given us the gift of friendship to help us navigate through our lives on earth. So again, if you're finding yourself that perhaps this is something that you are lacking in or haven't really fully experienced, gotten the full extent of that experience, let me encourage you, talk to your Father and start out by showing yourself friendly. Thanks so much for tuning in once again. And as always, my prayer for you is that the peace of the Lord will remain with you and yours. God bless you. Until next time.